And then taking some time to begin tuning into the sounds that surround you now. The sounds inside the room, sounds outside, further away. Seeing if you can find that way of being with the sounds that allows you to stay rested in the center. So the sounds come and go. Just allow them to arise, allow them to change, and allow them to fade away in their own time. And depending on where you are and what the soundscape that surrounds you is like, you might also notice space in between the sounds. And if that is there for you, can you allow yourself to notice that without needing to hold on to it or needing to extend it? So that quietness is there, and then the quietness fades away. And then we'll begin to bring that same kind of quiet and gentle attention in towards our physical experience. So beginning to become aware of the fact that you're breathing without needing to breathe in any particular way. So knowing that you're breathing in and knowing that you're breathing out. And using this as an anchor for a moment. So other things will ask for your attention, but we can let them drop away a little bit as we come back to the breath. And then seeing if you can really notice the first place in your body that moves as you breathe in. You might find it useful to rest a hand or both hands in contact with that place, wherever it is for you. And for the next few rounds of breath, seeing if you can imagine this place as the center, where the breath begins. And as you breathe in, just sensing the way that the movement spreads out from that central point. So you might sense a kind of ripple or a wave of movement spreading out from the beginning of the breath all the way to the end of the in-breath. And then a ripple or a wave spreading out gently from the beginning of the out-breath all the way to the end of the out-breath. And just coming back again and again to the breath. So that simple practice of returning. Simple, but not always easy. Great. And then we're going to begin to come into some movement now, and we'll start with a breathing practice, so a really subtle movement. And I think it's easier to feel this movement from a seated position. So if you're not in a seat yet and you'd like to join us, then make your way there. Just make sure you're supported underneath your hips, so sitting on a cushion or a blanket or a chair, so that you can be as upright as you can without needing to use too much effort. And as always, if you know that you need to continue resting, maybe you stay on your back for the whole class, you're really welcome to do that. Just be guided by how things are in your body at the moment. So if you bring your hands, if it's comfortable to do this, towards your belly, towards your center, and just give it a little rub to begin with, if that feels okay for you today. Just getting a sense of maybe there's some softness under your hands. And then find somewhere that's relatively comfortable for them to rest. And we're going to take a few rounds of breath, just breathing completely normally, kind of however your breath is coming right now, but just noticing if there is any movement under your hands as you breathe. So for some of us, that might feel quite clear. For some of us, things might be quite still under the hands. And just inviting yourself to breathe as if you could breathe into your hands. So you don't need to push your belly out or do anything too active, but just imagine your breath could come all the way down to meet your hands. So you might feel a little bit more soft movement there as you breathe. But really subtle. Okay. And then we're going to take a few rounds of breath, breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. And the best description I can think of for this is as if you were trying to fog up a pane of glass or a mirror with your breath. So you breathe in gently through the nose and then out. In through the nose at your own pace and gently out. If you do that a few times, you might notice the breath becomes a little bit more audible. And you might notice something feeling a little bit different in the area underneath your hands. So kind of from the inside, you might sense a little bit more engagement and waking up in the center. And you can experiment with that same kind of breath, but with the mouth closed. So breathing in through the nose and then out through the mouth. Keeping everything about that breath the same. So you're still kind of fogging up that mirror, but your lips happen to be closed. So you might, again, sense a little bit more engagement under the hands in the area around the belly. And then find somewhere comfortable to rest your hands and let that breath go. Let your breath just return to however it needs to be. So that's something close to a breath that's referred to as ujjayi breathing in yoga. Some ways of practicing yoga, they really draw on that breath a lot, and you do it kind of all the way through the practice. I prefer not to do anything that active with my breath when I'm moving, but I think it's useful to just tap into the sense that your breath might connect you to your center a little bit more, because as you move naturally, you might find your breath changing and shifting a little bit. You might notice a bit more of that kind of connection to your center as your breath changes. it's not something that we need to turn on. I think it's something that we kind of do begin to naturally do. So just being kind of interested and aware of what might be happening at the center as you move, particularly moving a little bit more dynamically. So let's start with our kind of more bodily movement from this seated position. If you need to shift or change anything about your position, then do. And let's just make sure that we are sitting kind of as tall as we can be without sacrificing ease. So maybe bringing hands to the front of the body helps us to lengthen a little bit through the front. But just checking in with the back as you do that, if anything kind of tightens up along the lower back or the mid back, maybe you might need to shift something again to find some space again there. Great. And then resting hands down, let's drop the chin down towards the chest, just letting the weight of the head go, consciously softening the jaw and consciously softening down through the hips and the lower body. The next time that you breathe in, feel that breath at the center of your body and then feel it spreading up through the spine until the face can float upwards again. And as you breathe out, gently release down the weight of the head, consciously softening the jaw. So breathing in to float the face up and breathing out to release the weight of the head down. So the breath spreads all the way up the spine from the center to the crown of the head. And the next time you release the weight of the head forwards, we'll pause there. Give yourself a moment to tune into what you can feel in the back of the neck. And then rolling the right ear in the direction of the right shoulder. Keeping the right shoulder nice and soft, it doesn't need to help. Have a explore here with the position of your head and your neck to find a nice stretch for the left side of the neck, but it's not too intense. Take a breath in. And as you breathe out, rolling the chin back to center. And then rolling over towards the left. Left ear relax down. Take a breath in here. And then taking your time to roll gently from side to side. This movement can be as big or as small as feels good in your body right now. And you might find places along the way that you'd like to pause for a moment and breathe. Can you allow the shoulders to drop down? Next time the head rolls towards the left, we'll finish there. So coming back to center, head heavy, and then breathing the face up again. Right. And then coming into a few circles through the shoulders when you're ready. And then maybe taking those circles a little bit wider. Great. And then resting the hands back down. Just going to turn my phone off. So resting the hands back down, bringing some attention back down towards the center of the body, to the belly. And let's come into some circles from here. So maybe with some contact with your hands, if that's useful. Just exploring the size of circle that feels good for your hips, for your belly, for your back. And then let's move in the opposite direction. Great, and coming back towards center. If you've been sitting with your legs crossed, let's change the cross of the legs so that they're even. But if you're in a symmetrical position, just stay as you are. And then let's bring our hands out. And as you breathe in, reaching all the way out and all the way up. As you breathe out, bringing the hands back down towards center. Great, so using the in-breath to get that sense of spreading from the very center out into the limbs. And breathing out to come back to center. Last breath here. And then hands coming down and taking a moment to pause and to find your breath again and just notice how the breath feels from the inside. Great. So then let's make our way onto our backs for a moment. If you've got something nearby, like a blanket or a cushion that can support your head, especially if you've got any sensitivity in your neck today, then that might be a nice idea. And if we begin with our knees bent, you might find that dropping them in towards each other helps you to feel a bit more supported, or you might want to keep them parallel. And then bringing the arms up towards the sky. So the shoulders can really rest heavy into the earth. The head can be heavy, the lower back can be heavy. And the next time that you breathe in, with an awareness of what you can feel at the center of your body, we're just going to let the hands drift back behind us a little bit, maybe just an inch or two. And as you breathe out, let your hands begin to float forwards. So we just want to be moving enough that we can begin to feel the connection between what's happening in our arms and what's happening at the center of our body. So it might be easy for some of us to bring the arms right back, but we don't need to do that. And it's actually more helpful to keep the movement a bit more contained right now. So you're moving just enough to feel a little bit of engagement and waking up at the center. And then coming back to center and feel the belly softening. Right. And depending on what's happening in your body today, you might want to stay with that movement as it is, or maybe even coming to rest, resting the hands on the belly. Or you can experiment with lifting the knees away from the ground. Bring them in towards your body with your hands. Maybe have a little rock and a roll if that feels nice for your lower back. And then resting really gently the hands on the knees. As you breathe in, let the knees float gently away. And as you breathe out, bring the knees back into center. A couple more breaths at your own pace, just tuning into the rhythm of your own breath. Great. And then maybe exploring allowing the knees to float a little further away. So now taking the hands away from the knees, and notice how as you do that, the center of your body is going to wake up a little bit more. So some lower back engagement, some lower belly engagement. If this feels like too much, you can always bring the knees back down and continue with this movement with the arms. If it feels okay to float your knees and to bring the arms up, then you can explore really gently, just shifting the left leg an inch or two forwards and the right arm an inch or two back, and then come back to center. And then swap sides. So as we did with just the arms, this is a really small, subtle movement. Just enough to feel some engagement and then coming back to center. And noticing the ways that the limbs might connect into the center of your body as you move. Right. And the next time you reach out through the right leg and the left arm, we'll finish there. So coming back to center, if you're not already, hugging the knees in and having a little rock and a roll. Massage your lower back into the ground, moving in the opposite direction again. Okay. So then we're going to come from here through and onto a tabletop position. So if it's comfortable for you to be in a tabletop position today, if it's not comfortable to be bearing weight in your wrists, you can either come down onto your forearms, or you might want to stay on your back. So wherever you are beginning, let's go through a few rounds of cat-cow, which is hard to do if you're lying on your back, so just use this as an opportunity to rest if you're there. But if you're in all fours or on your forearms, find your spine, take a breath in, and as you breathe out, just rounding the spine, dropping the head down, drawing the lower belly in. And then as you breathe in, refilling the spine open, face floating up, shoulders floating away. You're continuing with that movement at your own pace. Maybe connecting with the breath in the way that I've suggested, but maybe a different connection feels good. Let yourself explore it. And then coming back towards center, towards a more neutral position. So you're in a tabletop position with a long spine. And we're going to explore that same movement that we did on our backs now from a tabletop position. So again, it's really subtle. You can do this movement in a really big way, but I actually get a little bit more from it doing it really subtly, because it asks me to really pay attention quite closely to what's happening inside. So just exploring reaching the left arm forwards, maybe floating away from the ground. And as you do that, notice what's happening at the center of your body. So is there a little bit of engagement there? And then bringing that hand down. Shifting and taking the left hand up and down. And as you explore that side to side, just seeing how steady the center of your body might be able to be. So the more we're able to ask for support from our center, the stiller we might experience the center of the body being here. Great. And then bring the hands down. That might be plenty to explore, or you could introduce your legs. So just shifting back through the left foot. Maybe the toes stay in contact with the ground, maybe they hover a little bit off the ground. And then coming back. Shifting back through the right. Maybe contact, maybe lifting a little bit, coming back. And this, for me, feels more challenging to stay steady at the center. So I need to really focus to keep some steadiness there. Right. And there's already a lot going on there, so that might be enough. Or you can just explore hand and foot moving at the same time. But again, that's another layer of challenge. And if you find yourself really wavering about and wobbling as you do that, maybe come back a step to find a place where you can be relatively steady. Great. You can build on that steadiness from where you feel it in your body. And the next time you move the left hand or the left leg, we'll come back to finish. And if you're not already there, let's take a moment in child's pose. So taking the knees wide, hips back. Finding somewhere to rest the head. It might be the ground, it might be stacked hands or stacked fists or a cushion. And just inviting yourself to settle back a little bit into something stiller, knowing that you've always got the option for gentle movement within that stillness, if you prefer. Inviting the breath to travel down into the backs of the lungs, the back of the waist. Great. And then deciding if you'd prefer to stay resting here, if rest is a priority for you, or if
beginning to move a little bit more with the breath would be good. You could reach the arms forwards, float on up either to your forearms or towards your hands, and then float back down again towards child's pose. So the breath leads you up, and the breath drifts you back. And if it will feel good in your body today to thread downward facing dog into that flow, then you can use an out breath from your knees to tuck your toes, to draw your hips up and back, and an in breath to come back towards your knees. So really listen inside and see what your body is kind of asking for and suggesting. Be guided by that. And then however you've been moving, we'll meet in a tabletop position, so either on hands or on forearms. And whichever option you've chosen, just taking your foundation, your hands a little further forward. So either your forearms or your hands shift gently forwards. And then bringing awareness again to the center of your body, seeing if you can keep the spine nice and long. Just experimenting with shifting your weight forwards a little bit, so the shoulders come over the wrists or over the elbows. As you do that, notice what's happening at the center. Is there a little bit more engagement? And then shifting the weight back again. So again, it's a subtle movement. We're just using these small movements to see if we can really start listening for sensations at the center, because for a lot of us, those sensations can begin to become a little bit cut off in our daily life, but there's a lot of kind of aliveness in them. So connecting with them is really useful, I think. Great. And then we'll make our way, when you're ready, towards a forward bend. So you might come through downward facing dog, you might come through padding back and into a squat, you might come up any way that feels comfortable in your body. So with the feet wide enough apart that you've got room to breathe, maybe supporting your forearms on your thighs if that's helpful for your lower back, or maybe releasing forwards, giving the weight of the head down if that feels better. You can take hold of your elbows if that's a nice option for you. And remembering that you can shift and move however you need to within this shape to help yourself find a bit of space in it. You don't need to feel stuck. When you're ready, we're going to find our way towards standing, either with a flat back and supporting yourself up the thighs, or rolling up if that feels okay in your body today. Having a roll through the shoulders, shake out through the hands, through the legs, have a little jiggle. Great. I love watching the jiggles that emerge all around the country. So let's find our standing pose, and as always, if it's useful for you to have a bit of support while you're standing, using a surface that's nearby is a really good idea. Bring your feet a comfortable distance apart, wherever they need to be to feel like they're offering you some support. And then bring your hands towards center, so you're getting a sense of the midline of your body. Then take your attention down towards your feet and notice which foot's holding the most weight right now. Almost always one or the other will be. And then traveling your attention up through your legs, through your hips, your lower back, maybe your belly,
noticing the differences that there might be side to side there. And that might relate to where your weight is balancing at the moment. And then just explore and experiment with shifting your weight gently from side to side. It might be so subtle a movement that it's invisible from the outside. It might be quite big. As you do that, just noticing how things change. Your legs, your hips, your lower back, your belly. Great. See if you can find a place where you're a little bit more balanced than the place that you began. So we're starting our standing poses from a place of more equilibrium. And then softly bend your knees. I'm going to turn around just so you can see what's happening in my spine, around my hips. We're going to come into our chair pose. So if it's useful to have some support, you might want to turn to face that now. Bending the knees gently and inviting the hips to move back in space. As you do that, the spine stays long. And you might bring your hands to your legs to feel the muscles switching on. Maybe hands come towards your heart. And then experimenting with reaching the arms forwards. As you do that, just notice again that awareness that we've had around the center of the body. How does this reach of the arms impact the center there? You might find that having the hands back at center feels better for your lower back. So feel free to do that. Or if reaching the arms feels okay, you might move with the breath a little bit. So as you breathe out, bringing the hands to your heart. And as you breathe in, reaching forwards, connecting fingertips to center. Let's take one more breath. And hands coming back to center, coming to stand. Great. And let's take the feet a little bit wider now. So we're finding our way towards temple pose. The toes pointing out a little bit so that when we bend our knees, the knees are moving in the same direction as the toes. Great. And then the same way that we did with chair pose, when the feet were closer together, we're going to take the hips back a little bit. Weight is in the heels and the spine is long. Again, you might want to sense some of the strength and support with your hands. And then as you breathe in, let's lengthen the legs and reach back. As you breathe out, bending the knees, arms coming back down. Let's take one more breath. Great. And then coming back to center. Let's squirrel our feet in, finding a nice, stable position with the feet again. And then just take your attention back down to your feet and check in again. Which foot's holding the most weight? Might be quite familiar by now, the pattern. And then let yourself just shift towards something more balanced, so shifting side to side. And then we'll explore a balancing pose. Let's begin with our feet close together. So as we bring the feet together, we might find a bit more of a challenge for our balance, but we can also squeeze the feet and the legs a little bit together. And as you do that, you might sense a bit more waking up around the belly or the lower back, and the core switching on a bit to support it. Right, so staying as close to the center as you can. Just going to explore shifting the weight into the left foot, so the left leg is strong and the right heel lifts. And that might be as far as you go today. You could rest that right heel on your ankle. You could bring the sole of the foot to the inner calf, or you could bring the sole of the foot to the inner thigh. But in a similar way to when we were on all fours and trying to kind of keep the center quite steady, seeing if you can stay close to that central line in your standing pose as well. So if you can get your leg up here, but you veer way off, maybe that's not as useful as experimenting with stability with something more subtle. So just explore. And you might like to take the arms up. Finding your breath, wherever you are. And then finding the ground again, in your own time. Have a little wriggle and a jiggle and release through. Okay. And then let's explore that on the other side. So it might be really different on this side, and we want to bring some curiosity to that and some kindness to it. So spreading the toes, pouring the weight down into the right leg, just shifting the left heel. Maybe the heel stays at the ankle or the inner calf. Maybe it travels up higher. So exploring that sense of staying as close as we can to the center. As you maybe extend the arms up. Let's take one more breath, wherever you are. And then hands coming down. Both feet back to the ground. A little wriggle and a jiggle, maybe a little twist. Great. And then finding your way back to center. Lovely. And let's come down towards the ground. So any way that suits you to come down. You might want to come down through a downward facing dog if that's means something that you feel comfortable in. And let's come all the way down to rest on our back. So we're going to finish with a twist. If a twist isn't going to feel comfortable for you today, then you might feel anything else that you want to do, or you can come straight into relaxation and just enjoy a few extra minutes there. But we're going to come into the twist, if you're twisting today, in a similar way that we did last week if you're here. And this is another place where I feel like I really connect my limbs into my center with this twist. So we're going to start on our sides, and if we rest our arms in front of each other, the top hand just resting down. And if this isn't a familiar movement, you might want to just watch me do the first one so you get a sense of how it might look from the outside, or it might look quite different in your body. So yeah. So starting on our sides, and then we're going to slide the top hand forwards, float it up above the head. So it might stay in contact with the ground, or it might float a little bit. And then as you open up into the twist, there'll come a moment where you need to float a knee, and then you need to float the next knee, and you can roll all the way over. So sliding the hand forwards, taking the hand up, opening up, and floating a knee as soon as you need to keep the movement feeling fluid. So we don't want to kind of wrench ourselves in half here. Just offering the chest and the shoulders an opportunity to open, and all of the limbs an opportunity to move in connection
with the spine. And you can take that movement at your own pace and be interested in the way that it might shift and change. Great. And the next time that you roll over onto your side, let yourself really kind of draw in. Bring your knees in. Draw your elbows a little closer. So you've got something like a child's pose on your side. Just taking a moment to rest there. And then we're going to make our way from here towards a relaxation pose. So whatever is going to suit you best for relaxation today. You might stay resting on your side. If you do, then a cushion under your head and maybe a cushion under your top knee might be nice. You might rest on your back. You might come up to sit. It's choosing an option that allows you the best opportunity to begin settling. So we're offering ourselves the best conditions we can find to allow that process to unfold. Make sure you feel warm enough. And decide whether having your eyes open or closed will suit you best today. And then allow yourself to rest back into the position that you found. So we have established helpful conditions. And now we can allow ourselves to rest. Let the process of settling unfold in its own time. Sometimes it's easy to connect with a sense of stillness and quietness. Sometimes that might not be so available. So seeing if you can be really generous and welcoming with whatever you experience here. Whatever happens inside when you invite yourself closer to stillness. Knowing that you've always got the option to shift and move as you need. Inviting your body to rest back into the support of the earth. And returning once more to your breath. Without needing to breathe in any particular way. Without needing to be in any particular way. Simple awareness of the breath rippling into the body. And an awareness of the breath rippling out.
seeing if you can allow yourself space around the breath for anything else that needs to arise. Anything that asks for your attention or moves through your awareness. You don't need to put any effort or energy into pushing any of that away. There is space enough around the breath to hold it all. To allow things to arise and to fade away in their own time. Knowing that we've got anchors for our attention that we can return to whenever we need. Our breath, the sensations of our body supported by the earth, and the soundscape around us. Whatever it is that feels useful for you to return to, the more often we repeat that process of gently and lovingly inviting ourselves back to the thing that helps us to be really present here where we are, the stronger that capacity grows. Allowing yourself to be aware again now of your breath. Using that awareness of your breath to bring you a little bit more deeply into your body. And let yourself decide whether it might be best for you this morning to continue resting, in which case take as much time as you can. You might allow my voice to fade into the background a little bit or turn it off. If you feel ready to begin to move on, we'll do a short breathing practice from a seated position before we finish. So you can bring some gentle movement into the body, find your way towards a seat. There's no rush. I thought we'd just do a few moments of alternate nostril breathing, which I don't think that I've done with this class before. So if it's not familiar to you, some of you will know it, some of you won't. It is just as it sounds. We breathe through one nostril at a time. But so traditionally you practice using your fingers, using a thumb to block off one side gently and the ring finger to close off the other side. It's a really gentle pressure. You're not kind of jamming it closed, just a gentle kind of suggestion for the nostril to close is enough. Some people find that quite restrictive. So if it's new to you, maybe begin with your hands, see how that feels. If after a few rounds it doesn't feel kind of comfortable or it feels like you're becoming agitated, you can let that go. Either imagine the breath moving in the way that I'm describing, or just let that go altogether and sit with your breath however you need. But if you want to explore the alternate nostril breath, you can also rest your fingertips at the index finger and middle finger at the forehead if that feels comfortable, or curl it in. It's really individual, so find what feels comfortable for your hand. And if you are going to be using your hand, rest your other hand under your armpit, and it gives a little support so this shoulder and arm doesn't need to get too tired. So we're going to begin by just closing off the nostril that is underneath the thumb. So for me, that's my right nostril. Breathing out through the other side. Then breathe in as you are. Close with the ring finger and breathe out. And breathe in. Close the thumb, breathe out. In. Closing the ring finger and breathe out. So once that pattern feels familiar, just allow yourself to follow at your own pace. The speed of your own breath guides you. You can really focus on the sensations of the breath entering and leaving the body. If you notice any tension gathering in the body, you can invite the out breath to be an opportunity for that to drop away a little bit. In the next few rounds, we'll bring that to a close. So wait until you feel ready. Finish with an out breath and then let your hands just settle. Allow the breath to come and to go. Just giving yourself a bit of time to check inside and to notice how things are feeling for you now. And then finding a gesture with your hands that helps you bring a sense of completion. And thank yourself for taking the time to practice this morning, for putting time aside to be with your body, to connect inwards. And sending some gratitude out as well to the people who have practiced alongside you and held the practice